I'm now on to the second part of my trip across Germany for Harvest 2014. Harvest is finished in the Pfalz, and now it's time to leave Fritz and the crew at the Friedrich Becker winery and head to the Mosel to the Wegeler Estate in Bernkastel-Kues. But first, an overview of the Mosel region and the estate we'll be visiting. The Mosel is the fourth largest region in Germany, with 9,000 hectares or about 22,000 acres under vine. However, it's arguably the most prestigious. White wine, and primarily Riesling, dominates wine production here, with a small amount of red wine produced, most notably Pinot Noir. The climate is continental and therefore depends on very specific microclimates in order for grapes to attain ripeness. Most top quality wines come from steep slopes near the Mosel, Saar, or Ruhr rivers. Most of the soil of the region is from chalky and slate soils that retain heat and aid in water drainage. This also adds to the special microclimate of the top wine growing areas. So now some vital statistics about the winery we're going to visit. Wegeler has about 14 hectares under vine and produces about 8,000 cases a year. The Mosel estate only produces Riesling. Wegeler has holdings in 4 different vineyards in Bernkastel, one in the village of Grach, and holdings in the famous Sundial or Sonnenauer vineyard in Wehlen. The soil at Wegeler is mostly a combination of slate and clay. And lastly, the estate is a member of the VDP, an organization whose name literally translates to mean the Association of German Quality and Predicate Wine Estates. Generally, the top producers of Germany are part of this association. Now for a little history. The Bernkastel estate was found by Julius Wegeler in the year 1900. Shortly thereafter, their holdings in Doctor were purchased, and a new press house was built outside of Bernkastel-Kues. Today, the Wegeler estate is still in the family, now in its 4th generation. So without further ado, let's head to the Mosel, to the Wegeler estate in Bernkastel-Kues. I arrived early afternoon at the Wegeler winery in Bernkastel-Kues, just in time to see a load of beautiful grapes being delivered for destemming and pressing. Curious to know more about the 2014 harvest in the Mosel, I decided to follow the crew back to the famous Bernkastel Doctor vineyard site, where pickers were still fast at work. There I caught up with Peter, a vineyard manager for Wegeler, to discuss what has become the big story of the 2014 vintage, the appearance of a new fruit fly from Asia.
The new fruit fly puts its eggs into the grape and they start eating from the inside. That's why everything here is empty now. The European fruit fly just lives on the surface of it and starts, well, if the grape starts molding, they get it from the outside. But the new one, like this one here again, empties the whole grape. And it started with the red wine, and now they jump over to the white wine. This here is, we say, vinegar grapes. You have to drop, because if you have too many of them, the wine automatically tastes like vinegar. Mm-hmm. So, take this and drop it. Oh.
Like most areas in Germany, strict selection in the vineyards had to be done in 2014. This was a result of rainy days followed by warm nights during the summer, which caused some issues with rot. But that didn't mean good quality grapes couldn't be found. Today's harvest is being analyzed by winemaker Norbert Bright using an Elixrr. The Elixrr is able to give a reading of the density of the grape's must at the time of harvest. This indicates the ripeness of the grapes and their sugar levels, and is often how German wines are classified.
But on total, the quality is okay. It's more than 90 degrees Elixrr, and so it's a good bad diesel.
So what about the wines of the 2014 vintage so far?
I can be very happy with the quality of the 2014. We have the first wines in the cellar. They are still fermenting, but they taste already very good and very fruity. I think they are concentrated, and the wetness of the summer will give them a lot of minerals.
The estates with the best results often make the use of hand pickers over machinery. At Wegeler, much of the same crew, mostly from Romania, have been coming to the estate for over 20 years. With this comes a vast degree of knowledge and speed. I decided to try my hand at harvest work. I always wanted to pick grapes in the steep, majestic slopes of the Mosel, and today seemed like my chance. The changing light made grape selection difficult, and the heat due to the sun's reflection off of the slate soil made conditions hot. By the time I finished this vine, the crew was already over 20 rows away. I had newfound respect for the people who do this difficult work. Taking a break from harvest for a moment, I was able to visit Wegeler's old cellars, built just under the Dr. Vineyard site. The cellar was built between 1650 and 1850 and consists of a 40 and 70 meter length tunnel carved through solid stone. With a constant temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, this cellar is now used to store the top wines of the estate.
59, wine from 59, we have wine from the 30th of last century, so almost 100 years old. And this is where we keep this, since the temperature is stable and usually it's dark. This is a 97 Dr. Auslese, for example. See, calcium.
I was amazed to see the roots from a Riesling vine poking through the thick stone of the cellar ceiling. I knew vines traveled far to find water and nutrients, but to go through solid stone took things to another level. So they go down to 15 meters,
Yep.
and this is one of the...
Yeah, one of those that has found a crack in the rock.
Found a crack in one of the rocks.
Yeah.
Somewhere in this general area was the vine that had traveled a whopping 15 meters through stone. Harvest for the day has ended, and the workers are getting ready to leave. My first day in the Mosel is now over. So I decide to hitch a ride with the harvest workers back to the Kues side of the city. I couldn't wait to find out more about the Dr. Vineyard site tomorrow. It's Sunday morning, and my day starts with a visit to Wegeler's new cellar located on the Kues side of the city. Winemaker Norbert Bright is already hard at work, checking that all the wines are fermenting properly and filtering where necessary. I decide to leave Norbert to his work and start walking to the Bernkastel side of the city, back to the Dr. Vineyard. The first road bridge connecting Kues to Bernkastel was built in 1874. By 1905, Bernkastel and Kues officially joined to create one city. Today, Bernkastel-Kues is a popular tourist destination. The medieval, part-timbered marketplace built in the 17th century draws people from all over the world. The Mosel Valley's reputation of being one of the most beautiful wine regions in the world also helps to make Bernkastel-Kues a happening place. One of the town's most interesting wine bars is located in the Spitzenhäuschen, or Pointed House, built in 1416. Now back up to the Dr. Vineyard site, which has some interesting history of its own. The name Doctor traces back to a 14th century local legend. As the story goes, Archbishop Bowman II was staying at the Landshut Castle when he became seriously ill. The Archbishop's doctors prescribed all kinds of medicines and remedies for his fever, but to no avail. Finally, an old winemaker came and gave the Archbishop a keg of his finest wine, declaring it to be the best of medicines. He claimed that he himself used the wine to ward off all of his illnesses and fevers, and it had always worked. Bowman II was miraculously cured. When asked about a reward, the old wine grower asked that his vineyard be given the academic title of doctor, since his wine was the true cure. Appreciating the joke, Bowman II issued a certificate awarding the vineyard the prestigious honor of Bernkastel Doctor. Now some quick facts. It's fair to say that some of the most prestigious and expensive wines produced in the world have come from the Dr. Vineyard. In fact, As late as the 1960s, a Spätlese from the Doctor would fetch more than a top-growth Bordeaux. Just a little over 8 acres total, the Doctor is considered one of the top-growth vineyards of the Mosel region. The Doctor vineyard is planted with mostly old Riesling vines, some of which are over 100 years in age. Doctor's south-southwest exposure, steep slope, slate soil, and proximity to the Mosel River helps create a special microclimate that makes growing wine in one of the most northerly vineyards in the world not only possible, but world-class. Now, a little bit more about the soil.
The soil type here in our area is slate and some quartz in between. This is just for Bernkastel or Middle Mosel area, because other areas they have more sandstone, lime, but here in this area it's mostly slate.
The importance of slate in the vineyards can't be overstated. It's the slate that not only drains surplus rainfall, but retains daytime heat into night, allowing for grapes to ripen in an otherwise inhospitable environment. I'm now traveling from the Wegeler vineyards in Bernkastel back to the winery in Kues with Peter and today's batch of newly harvested grapes. At Wegeler, tradition blends neatly with technology. Despite the winery being built in 1903, the 3-level design, which incorporates gravitation as the means of processing its grapes into wine, is considered still to this day to be cutting-edge technology. This process frees the grapes and its juices from the intervention of pumping, which can destroy some of the desirable flavors of the wine. Right now, the grapes are being unloaded where it's first destemmed and then put into the press on the floor below. The barrels are now thoroughly cleaned of grape juices and other debris to prepare for the next day of picking. I had a lot of fun hanging with the Wegeler crew in the Mosel, but now it was time to leave Bernkastel-Kues behind and head to my next destination, the Franken region.